One beautiful spring day, these two friends met in a park. We'll call these friends Tom and John. This wasn't a normal meeting of friends. You see, it had been exactly 22, how many? 22 years since Tom and John had seen each other, and each was afraid that the other wouldn't even show up. But yet, here they were. You know, in high school, Tom and John were best of friends. They were alike in every way. They even shared the same birthday. Tom, well, he was the all-star quarterback of the football team. And John, well, he was the best receiver on that team. And both were tall, athletic, and good-looking. Each had a steady girlfriend. Each did really well in school. They both had parents who were supportive and who had the money to send them to good colleges. Everyone that knew Tom and John just assumed that they'd each be highly successful and that they'd be friends for life. And Tom and John, well, they thought so too. And why wouldn't they? They seemed to have it made, right? But as life would have it, fate threw them a cruel twist. And right before graduation, John's parents moved across the country and they took John with them. Now, this was before social media, and it was when, long distance calls were only something that you do on Sunday night because that's when they were affordable. So John and Tom figured they'd probably lose touch, but they vowed that no matter what else happened, they would meet each other in their favorite park on their 40th birthday. And today, well, today was the day. So Tom and John met in the park nervously, and today, they looked nothing alike. In fact, the difference between them was startling. Tom was an easy 50 pounds heavier than John. He looked 10 years older too. Tom was balding, he had a big pot belly, and when he moved, it looked like it hurt. He looked meek. Tom was a shell of his former self. He didn't look like the confident all-star quarterback he was 22 years before. But what about the star receiver, John? Well, John, on the other hand, still looked a lot like he did in high school. He was still lean and athletic looking. He looked strong and confident and capable. But the physical differences between Tom and John were just the tip of the iceberg. John, well, he was a successful business owner, but he wasn't one of those run-ragged business owners who let the business run him. He had balance. He had plenty of money and plenty of time to enjoy life too. Tom, on the other hand, well, he was a low-level manager who spent his days in a cubicle. And unlike John, he never seemed to have enough money to make ends meet. He worked like a dog for his company, but he had very little to show for it. John just celebrated his 10th wedding anniversary. His wife was a true partner in his life, and she was his best friend too. Tom, well, of course, he was going through a painful divorce after being married for just 3 years. Today, Tom and John are so very different. And this meeting was nothing like either of them had expected 22 years ago when they vowed to meet. They'd assumed that they'd just tell each other about all their successes and all their wonderful adventures in life. Instead, John had all the stories of success and adventure, while Tom, he had only had a long line of mediocrity and even embarrassing failures. John had it all: money, freedom, and great health and great relationships. Tom, well, he barely eked out an existence. He was a virtual slave to his company, and he was trying to start over in the dating world at 40. Now, hearing the story of John and Tom today, which would you rather be, John or John? Well, obviously, most of us would rather be John, which leads me to the real question. If John and Tom were so alike 22 years ago, if they were both blessed with smarts and good look and supportive parents, if both had the world by the tail, what the heck happened? Why was John so successful and Tom so mediocre at best? I want you to think about that question right now. In fact, why don't we do this? Let's just take a moment to write down your answer. And what do you think? What do you think was the difference between Tom and John? Really, just take some time and write down why you think John was successful and Tom was not. I'm gonna wait. Just take a moment to write down. Why was it? What was the difference? Why was one so much more successful than the other? What's the reason? Okay, I hope you wrote something down here. And I appreciate you doing that exercise because I'm going to share with you exactly the difference between John and Tom. But my guess is that it's not what you've got written down. Okay, so I'm going to share the real reason in a minute. But right now, I'd just like for you to imagine something. Imagine waking up, well, in the most comfortable bed you've ever slept in. And you look over at your sleeping partner and you smile. It's another special day with your best friend. You look out the window and the view is perfect. You know, on one side, you've got a beach so beautiful, you swear you're in the Caribbean. And on the other side, well, you've got lush rolling hills, beautiful green hills. Now imagine that you have, well, nothing at all that you have to do that day, even though it's a Tuesday. And while the rest of the world schleps off to some work that they hate, you've got the day wide open to do whatever you want to do. Really imagine that sense of freedom. Imagine the stress leaving you as you are filled with freedom and abundance, both financially and emotionally. Imagine standing tall, proud of the position in life that you have achieved. Now, wouldn't that feel great? Is that not the kind of life that you would love to live? Sure, that would be nice, but guess what? That is a stark contrast from what most people feel every day. In fact, if you're like most people that I meet, you might not even be close, not even close to where you thought you'd be in life by this time. Maybe you don't have enough money to live the life that you'd like to live and do the things that you'd love to do. Maybe you've got aches and pains that are constantly nagging at your body, or your body just won't do what it used to do, and you know what? It's disappointing. Or maybe the primary relationships in your life, maybe they've gone stale. Or maybe they're even on the verge of collapse. Whatever it is that's missing in your life, I can tell you that you are not alone. And I can also tell you that it's almost certainly not your fault, at least not intentionally. It's not your fault because whether you realize it or not, you have been programmed for mediocrity. Programmed for mediocrity. And that might sound a little harsh, but as I'm about to show you, it is a fact. You see, modern society has conspired to keep us a cog. What's the word? A cog in the giant wheel of life. The good news is undoing this programming is actually simple. The first step is realizing that the programming is there in the first place. And once you do, you know what? The rest is easy. And the rewards are priceless. What's the word? Priceless. Now, does that sound something worth learning? Because if you're serious about life, I sure hope you said yes. I call the difference between where you are now and where you'd like to be the desire gap. The desire gap. That's the gap between what you have and what you really want in life. Again, what you have and what you really want in life. For most people, well, that involves money. But I'm also talking about health and relationships and happiness as well. The space between what your life looks like at this exact moment in time and what you'd like it to be if everything was perfect. Well, that's the desire gap. What's it called? The desire gap. gap. It's a gap between where you are and where you want to be financially, and in your relationships, and in your health, and in your happiness. Yes and yes.